You must surely be wondering why this man wants to throw himself under the subway. But what is certain, his presence at this level saved the life of a young girl pursued simultaneously by two dangerous mafiosos. Let's discover together how it all started. In Nanjing, China, lives a little girl named Mai. She is a gifted mathematician who can solve complicated mathematical problems. She also has an excellent memory and never forgets the series of numbers she encounters. One day, Mai is going home with her friends when a group of men kidnap her. She is taken to a Chinese mob boss named Han. The digital data of Han's criminal enterprise is traceable. So he wants to use Mai as his personal mental calculator so that she memorizes the data for him. At first, the little girl refuses to cooperate. But when he threatens to kill her mother, she agrees to do as she is asked. Under the care of Han's trusted gang member Chang, Mai is brought to New York where she is hidden as his daughter. Elsewhere, in New Jersey, Luke, a former cop and cage fighter, is having an intense match with his opponent. In the match, he is supposed to lose. But he accidentally punches his opponent and puts him in a coma. The victory angers Russian mob boss Emil, who lost millions of dollars on Luke. Luke realizes an angry mobster means his family is in danger. So he rushes home. But he comes too late, because the gangster's son, Vasily, has already killed his pregnant wife. Luke is devastated by this death. And although he can fight back, he doesn't fight back. His Russians then promise to kill anyone he speaks or comes into contact with. With nowhere to go, Luke returns to his hometown of New York. He begins to live as a homeless man and makes his way to the streets of Manhattan. A year later, Mai is still working with the gang. Chang takes her on a weekly tour of the streets of Chinatown. It memorized the percentage of net profit or loss that each store faces. Shop owners are supposed to pay the gang a certain amount of money based on profits. However, Mai proves to be a useful asset for them. Throughout her work with the gang, she learned a lot about how business works in the gangster world. On the other side, Luke lives in a very poorly organized homeless shelter. One night, he encounters a man with no shoes and severely infected feet. Out of sympathy, he gives the man his new shoes. The next day, he wakes up to find that someone has slit the poor man's throat and stolen his shoes during the night. In other words, Luke's living conditions are bad. Meanwhile, a lady working closely with Chang approaches Mai in the middle of the night and informs her of her mother's death in China. It turns out that she was seriously ill and hospitalized. The next day, the gang's leader, Han, arrives in New York for the first time since he dispatched Mai. He came with a sheet of paper with a series of numbers on it. He then asks Mai to memorize these numbers. And it does it in less than 10 seconds. The numbers seem to be of great importance as Han burns the paper to ashes. After that, Chang takes her to the next location. He tells Mai that she will have to memorize the second set of numbers when she waits for the destination. Everything goes according to plan until he is attacked by the Russian mafia led by Emil. They are also after Mai because of the numbers she has memorized. A shootout ensues where the Chinese mobsters lose to the Russians and kidnap Mai. Meanwhile, Luke is having a bad day because a passerby stole his breakfast money. While trying to buy something, he comes across his former police colleague. The man immediately recognizes Luke and takes him to an abandoned building with his fellow police officers. Long ago, Luke had unmasked their corrupt method of helping local gangsters. The cops were still furious with him. He looked like he got in trouble at the time. He hits him and insults him. But he doesn't respond. At the end, a policeman hands Luke a gun, urging him to end his life. But Luke refuses and leaves. At the same time, Mai is taken to the leader of the Russian gang, Emil. Emil asked him about the numbers. Afterwards, she discovers that the lady who told her about her mother was helping Emil all this time. So, the lady also asks Mai to give them the code. But in return, Mai claims the woman is going to die because she doesn't know how business works. Right after, she falters there as she is no longer of any use to them. But he knows she will suffer the same fate if she gives them the number. This is why she is silent. Soon after, Captain Wolf and the men in uniform arrive at the Russian hideout to catch the criminals. It turns out that Captain Wolf was one of the corrupt cops and former colleague of Luke. What's worse, he doesn't do it for the law, but for the orders of the Chinese leader, Han. Emil calls the captain and offers him double the Chinese gangster's money to leave his hiding place. The corrupt captain accepts the deal and retreats. At that time, Mai fled from the hideout without anyone seeing her. The Russians and the Chinese gangsters set out to find her in the hope of finding her before the other group. Mai eventually reaches the subway station where Luke is about to end his life. He's about to jump onto the tracks when he meets the scared little girl's gaze and he stops. He also notices that the gangsters who killed his wife are looking for the little girl. To escape them, she gets on the subway. But the gang sees her and follows her. Luke realizes something is wrong and makes it his mission to save the girl. He clings to the subway and kills all the Russians on his way. One of them recognizes Luke, the guy they beat up a year ago. He is surprised how someone so submissive can defeat all men in minutes. And Luke finally meets Mai. But as soon as the subway stops, she flees with the mob mistaking Luke for one of the bad guys. Going to find her, Luke hears a red alert code relayed to all the cops. He realizes that the girl is also wanted by the corrupt policeman who will certainly return her to the mafia. Minutes later, 2 cops were shot by Luke as they found the girl and are trying to take her away. May still doesn't trust him, but gets in a car with him when the Russian mob arrives. A chase begins in the streets of Manhattan. Eventually, Luke kills all of the Russians and steals their wallets. Then he takes May to a luxury hotel. Later, the captain learns that May was forcibly kidnapped by Luke, not by the mafia. He is in shock as Luke has not been involved in a crime since leaving the police. Meanwhile, after checking into the hotel, May begins to trust Luke and tells him about the numbers she has memorized. By checking the format of the numbers, he understands that it is the combination of a safe. May says she was supposed to memorize a second number before the Russians attacked them. Thus, Luke deduces that there are 2 chests containing valuables likely traded by the Chinese mafia. Just then, Chang discovers May's location through a tracking device in her phone. He and his henchmen arrive at the hotel and start a shootout. Chaos ensues as people start fleeing for their lives. Eventually, Luke fights with the gangsters. Suddenly, they separate from May. He knows he can't leave May alone and is ready to do anything to find her safe and sound. So he calls Vasily, Emil's son, and leader of the Russians, from a phone he had stolen earlier. Luke poses as a member of their gang and claims to have the number everyone is looking for. Vasily believes him and calls him in a casino to give him the said number. Elsewhere, the town mayor calls Captain Wolf into his office to discuss all these shootings. The mayor reveals that Luke was not a normal policeman. In fact, he was a CIA agent on loan to the police force after the 9th of November. When he was on the force, he and his former partner Alex murdered several crime bosses in an attempt to impose order. However, Luke quit after exposing the captain and his team's corrupt methods. Alex stayed and seduced the mayor to get to where he is now. The captain finally realizes that the guy he thought was a loser is actually the most dangerous enemy he's ever had. Currently, Alex, Luke's former partner, is the mayor's boyfriend who has become corrupt like him. When the mayor is informed that May and Luke are together, he becomes nervous. It's like he knows something about the safe and its combination. Meanwhile, May is brought back to Chief Han, who asks her if she told anyone the combination. She lies and insists that she pretended not to understand English. Chang calls Alex and tells him they have the girl and they can continue the meeting. It is then revealed that the people the Chinese mafia was trying to do business with are the mayor and her boyfriend Alex. They exchange the unknown contents of their respective chest. Then Luke arrives at the casino where he finds the Russian mobsters. He ambushes all of Vasily's henchmen and takes him hostage. Luke plans to use it to threaten Russian leader Emil. So he calls Emil and asks him for the contents of the safe in exchange for his son's life. Emil reveals that the Chinese gangster's safe contains $30 million while the mayor's safe contains something worth that amount. The parties were about to make a trade using the little girl, but the Russians intervened and destroyed the plan. Since the Chinese have May, the plan is back on track. Chang goes to meet Alex and exchange the codes. So the only way for Luke to save the girl and get the $30 million back from the Chinese mob before the trade takes place. But he can't do it alone because the chest is hidden deep in Chinatown and is protected. Thus, he therefore asks for the help of his former police colleagues who agree to help him, but only for the money. The group then enters the hideout and engages in a firefight in which several mobsters and cops die. When they finally reach the vault, Luke betrays the cops and kills them except for the captain. He holds him hostage alongside his colleagues. He also takes the money from the safe and goes to the mayor's office. On the way, he calls Alex and asks him what the second chest contains. Since Luke has the money, Alex is obligated to do whatever he asks of her. He reveals that the second safe belongs to the mayor and contains a disk with data on all of New York's crime syndicates. The mayor wanted to sell it to the Chinese for the $30 million and let the gangs do their thing. But Luke breaks into the mayor's office and asks him for the contents of the second safe. Although the mayor is reluctant, he has no choice but to hand Luke a disk containing the data. Luke knocks him out and returns to meet Alex as promised. With both money and information, he's the most powerful in the game, but Alex has something more special. Mai. When the two meet to trade Mai for the money, Luke refuses to cooperate. Alex prepares to shoot, but Mai shoots him in the leg. Luke takes the opportunity to kill him easily. He and Mai are finally free with the money and disc they can use to protect themselves. For Mai's safety, Luke leaves the captain free with $50,000 in compensation for his troubles. He also lets Vasily go so the Russians don't chase them. Then there's Chinese mob boss Han, who had his money stolen, and Mai. Luke sends him all the remaining money so that he no longer tries to find Mai. Finally, he hides several copies of the disc all over town. In case someone tries to harm them, they can use the disc to blackmail powerful people. Finally, Mai and Luke travel to Seattle to start a new life. Without courage, Luke would never have made it to this level. Tell us in the comments a courageous experience you had to save a loved one. See you soon.